We please have a roll call.
Chair Warren.
The chair is present. Like to thank you, and let the record show that Councilwoman JSW is present. What we're going to do this morning, if it's okay with everyone here, is we're going to have a discussion on Mud Island by Memphis River Parks Partnership and a discussion by Mud Island by City Administration with a joint presentation. Let the record show that Councilwoman Walker and Cooper Sutton are also here. And turn it over to you, Director, Chief. Name and address for the record.
Carol Coletta, 41 Union Avenue, Memphis.
Nick Walker, Parks Director, City of Memphis, 2599 Avery.
Antonio Adams, Chief Operating Officer, City of Memphis, 125 North Main. So in response to the last council meeting and last committee meeting, what we did was we prepared a comprehensive kind of outlook of what we plan to study and review with respect to the city's riverfront and the assets that actually occupy those particular areas. What you have before you is a presentation that we've prepared, and so that you'll have, I'm trying to pull up the presentation now.
For those listening, we're in the process of some audio-visual issues so people can see the presentation at home.
There we go. All right. Here we go. So first, what we are planning on doing is we took a look at all of the key physical assets that we had starting from South Memphis moving towards North Memphis. So you have MLK Park, Tom Lee Park, Fourth Bluff, Mud Island, Greenbelt, and our core priorities in addressing this study will be to enhance and connect these assets to North Memphis, South Memphis, and then, of course, downtown. We must acknowledge prior studies that we've had, because there's been a lot of work by key stakeholders that have been done, but we'll start with that, but build upon that, because now we've had a change in where River Parks is now parked. They are now parked, no pun intended, under the Parks Division. With that being said, we can leverage that. All these assets, as you saw, are parks. So we can leverage that as a part of our park system, and we can activate those as parks, and we can actually leverage that with respect to funding. Next priority is to activate the harbor and other key assets, and then last priority, determine a successful and sustainable future for Mud Island. Again, these are the priorities. No set idea, no set I guess, no set picture, but it is a priority. We will include key stakeholders, key community engagement partners, but I want to be clear, this will be driven by Memphis River Parks, the Parks Division, and the administration. Our goal is to come back to you all with action items so that we can include and begin to activate in next year's budget. In the meantime, we will continue to activate, clean, and move forward with these particular items. We heard you, Councilwoman Swearingen Washington, with there are some action items to just keep some of our amenities there clean, open them up, and activate those. And we will move forward with that. But this is just a roadmap as to where we want to go and move forward with activating and providing a comprehensive plan and activating and moving these assets along our riverfront.
Let the record show that Councilwoman Logan is here. Thank you, Director, Chief.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else presenting from administration? Anything else going on?
I'll open it up to
Any questions
Mr.
from
Coletta
council members?
or Director Walker.
Councilwoman Swearingen Washington, your question.
I wanted to ask about the restrooms over there. Are they usable? When I went over there, they were locked up.
They were locked up, Councilwoman, and the restrooms in River Center, which is the place you enter over the walk bridge, on the first floor have been redone with Accelerate money. When we reopened them, they were quickly, I don't want to say damaged, but feces and blood was smeared all over the restrooms because there's so few people on Mud Island, and the unhoused began to occupy the restrooms. So what we did is cleaned it all up, locked it up, and we thought Mahogany would be open by now, the new restaurant in River Terrace. When Mahogany opens, we feel like we'll have more of a critical mass ready to open the restrooms so we can keep eyes on them and keep them safe.
Is there security over there?
There is, we don't have security in any of our parks. We rely on MPD for security. We have people who, on our team, rangers who work cleanliness and welcoming visitors and keep, being watchful to intervene in situations that can get dangerous. We encounter, we probably, Councilwoman, clearly encounter most unhoused people sheltering at Mud Island. That's mainly because it's got heating and cooling, and a lot of places that are hidden, not easily visible. So we have to intervene in that a good bit. Some of them are familiar people that we see on a regular basis, but some are dangerous, and then we call MPD to help us remove those people from public space and get them in a safer space for themselves and others.
That may be something as a council that we want to think about having, because there are a lot of secluded areas over there at Mud Island.
I'll just note real quickly, too, as it relates to restrooms in park facilities. I believe that is consistent with our policy. There are restrooms at MLK Park, for instance. However, those are kept closed except when there is activation. So if someone rents a pavilion, part of that pavilion rental is we go and make sure that the restrooms are tidy and that they're opened up for that event. And then after event, that close that down. If we have an activation of MLK Park, likewise. But again, to Carol's point, it's difficult to ensure both the equipment inside the restroom and avoid there being behavior that we're trying to avoid if we leave the restrooms open 24/7.
Can we be more intentional with planning activities over there so it doesn't seem as if we've forgotten about the park?
I think that's part of this conversation that we're having is not only what do we have to structurally do, but also what do we have to programmatically do. And I'll also say to their credit, I think there's a lot of activation that takes place that we're just not aware of. And that's going to be a part of the conversation as well, is how do we let people know all of the things that are taking place on Mud Island now? But no, your point is well taken.
You said a lot of activation is
I
taking
think
place
there's
now?
more than people realize. I think a lot would be, again, I don't want to get into splitting hairs, but I would say that I think more happens over there than people realize. But is it the amount of activation we want to see? Probably not.
So we can immediately have a plan of starting to, power wash and do things so that it can be a little bit more,
Yes, ma'am.
First class?
Basic maintenance we will and can address. No problem. But again, as we move forward with reactivating these key assets, definitely. What I don't want to do is to promise what what the future is definitely going to look like. When we talked about this, one of the things, and I guess I want to take you in your mind's eye, and then because we tend to be nostalgic here, but then I think for nostalgic purposes, I think this is appropriate for a lot of us who once that grew up in Memphis. We used to ride the bus, come downtown, and go to Mid-America Mall, and for no to low cost, we used to be able to come downtown, and as a family, you would be able to enjoy downtown. Well, here soon, you will be able to, because the Brooks Museum will, at no to low cost, be able to provide entertainment. Well, you can do so now at Tom Lee Park, but then as we activate these assets downtown, you will be able to do so at these different assets in the park as well. So a family will be able to enjoy the assets, but I do challenge you to enjoy these parks now. And to your point, with basic maintenance, we can continue to enjoy these parks, but with more activation, you will still be able to enjoy these parks. So we will continue to program so that our families, the citizens of Memphis, the visitors of Memphis, will be able to enjoy downtown. So families will be able to enjoy downtown, and that is our mission, that's our purpose with respect to this. From North Memphis, downtown, to South Memphis.
Last question, how soon will we have an actionable plan? For instance, in 3 months, we would have had this power wash. And, in 120 days, we have our first activity plan. Because if we're not careful, we'll be talking and talking, and it'll be this time next year.
So I'll go back and remind you what I stated. Daily maintenance is the responsibility of River Parks. So they're going to deal with their routine maintenance. That's their responsibility under their budget. But I'm going to come back. This group, the three of us, will come back to you by the end of this year with a plan for these particular assets so that we'll have it ready for budget in FY26. So it'll be a part of our budget so that one of these assets will be programmable and we'll be able to deliberate during budget next year.
I was just hoping that we would have some activities before the end of the year.
Before then, we will have activities as well.
Some yoga, that Friday night, what you all do, playing in the park or something. You can have an activity over there. I just didn't want it to be decent.
So to Director Walker's point, there are activities. I think what we need to do is probably promote them even more than what you all see. There are activities that happen in this park. What needs to happen is there needs to be more marketing, a more robust marketing of the activities that are there.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And I think this is one slide, I don't know if it came up, input from community and stakeholders. You want to talk 1 second about how that's going to occur and what you're going to do this fall with that? And then I think next in queue is Councilwoman Walker.
I'll let you all.
And again, so just for some educational purposes on this, and Chief spoke about it a little bit, we're actually building upon some exercises that have already taken place. So 2017, there was a study done, which if you'll notice, MLK Park is referenced in this plan. for clarity's sake, because we run into this a lot, MOK is not a park that's under the control of Memphis River Parks Partnership. It is a city-operated park, but given its connection and given the work that's being done at the I-55 exchange and where the state is talking about finally connecting underneath the bridge over from Martyrs to Crump Park, that we're starting to see physical connections to what has always sort of been there psychologically, that all of these parks are connected. So as that happens, we will continue on that path of looking at how do you have a unifying plan across of everything. Now, to Chief's point about engagement, what that looks like and how that is actually structured, that's part of what we as Memphis Parks bring to this. This body, composed of different members, although some of y'all are still here, approved a master plan that was done by Memphis Parks in 2020. And that is a very similar process to what we're talking about here. Identifying key stakeholders, making sure that we bring that feedback in and also evaluate who those stakeholders are. Because if you just open up the floodgates and say, everybody come on in and give us your opinions, it's going to be difficult to build consensus. But again, if you're conscientious about it and you look at who are the people who use these parks on a regular basis, who are most affected by this, and you have direct and important questions, which again, we've been through this process. We had more than 60 meetings throughout the community in order to develop our master plan. You take a similar approach to this, and the outcome will be something very similar. It will be the actionable items that Councilwoman Swearingen Washington is talking about in terms of the feedback that you need in order for this council and the administration to be able to say, these are where we need to prioritize our spend, these are the types of projects we need to do, and these are the types of programs that we need to have.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Councilwoman Walker.
Good morning. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate you referring to the different spaces as assets. I do believe that they are assets. And also the inclusion of the stakeholder feedback. I appreciate that as well. So my question, maybe this is for you, Director Walker. So currently, because there is some activity over there, what does the park, to get over on that side, does it have set hours?
This is where I will hand the microphone over to my friend Carol.
All righty.
The summer hours are on, say that again? Closes at 5, yeah. Mud Island is kind of a tough park to clear at night because, again, there are so many, it's a big park and it's hard to, it's quite a process. It takes at least a couple of people to clear the park at night. So we start closing that park at 5 o'clock.
Okay, again, what are the hours? If you close at 5, when do you open and what days are you open?
We're open every day, and we open I think we open at 7 right now.
A.m. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And the lighting is you're closing at 5, but still, do you feel the lighting is adequate at night?
We added lighting during Accelerate Memphis. That was part of the Accelerate Memphis spend. Do you recall those popsicle lights that were all over Mud Island? They were all kind of yellow and orange, and they'd all, 42 years, you probably, it's time to replace them. So we did replace them all with LED lights throughout the park, and we think the lighting is good. I mean, it could be enhanced, but it's adequately lit.
Okay, so moving forward, can we make sure and I know you all are comprehensive and y'all are on top of this, but as we move forward, can we make sure that the lighting is what it needs to be? Because that does support things that contribute to public safety issues and other things. Ms. Coletta, you mentioned a few minutes ago about mahogany, and you thought they would be open now. So are you saying they're not open?
They are almost open. They're close. And so we expect them to open certainly by this fall season.
Okay,
They've been open for special events, and I know you, some of the council members have enjoyed them, those special events, but they will be opening very soon.
So what has been your most recent communication with them in terms of, you're saying soon in this fall? Have they given you a date? Are you in regular ongoing communications with them surrounding this?
Almost every day.
Okay, great. Okay, I guess that wraps it up for me with this. So as we move forward, just make sure we're also thinking green and eco-friendly and things surrounding that. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Let the record show Councilwoman Easter Thomas is present, and you're now have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good
Councilwoman
morning.
White is also present.
Good morning, everybody. And Ms. Coletta, Director Walker, and Interim Chief, right until a few hours. So listening on the way in, I'm glad, I will say, that this administration is taking a stance on directing and being the visionary leaders, as they are for a lot of things in the city, but especially this. I know that, and I think that Director Adams alluded to it earlier, not only nostalgia gets us in a pit, but sometimes we get caught up in the minutia of things that sometimes we don't look at the parks in our district about. So that's not to anyone, but sometimes to myself. I stay by a park, and sometimes I have to look at it in the same way as may look at our larger assets and see how they are managed, how they are envisioned, and how that's going through. I just want to say that, I mean, you made it plain earlier, right? That you three sitting there would take hold and take charge, and we're here to see and deliberate and discuss what those options are. I think that as 13 people, we have 13 different sets of ideas. We may not even have 13 sets of funding for any of those things, but being able to get a vision set from different stakeholders that y'all actually have the time and the knowledge and know-how to pull together and figure it out is good. I think that a lot of times, especially when you're living in the world of the internet, a few folks' comments can go a long way. And we want to make sure that, especially as Memphians, that we are as positive and effective about the comments and the questions and the things that we're trying to do as it goes forward, to see what our possibilities are on our riverfront in District 7, right, in Super District 8. So I think that everybody has a real prioritized share of concern in it, but I just want to say, as a council person and someone with, a little bit of experience being on Mud Island, I think that we should ensure that we're letting the administration take charge of this and go to them with our questions, with our ideas, with our thoughts. If we have folks that are wanting to do stuff on Mud Island, right, take it to that. But a lot of the minutia stuff gets us really in the weeds. And I just want to say that from the point of the representative, your colleague, and also just a younger constituent with different ideas of what Mud Island used to be and could be. So that's all. Too much rambling, but basically we getting caught in the weeds on stuff that we need to turn around and look at our districts on, and really see how we can improve a lot of the green space and parks area and where we represent. And a lot of stuff seems personal, I'll say that, in different commentary and questions. And I just want to make sure that we're, as I would hope and pray, that we're as targeted and as straightforward in all of the city's business and not getting caught up because certain people are saying certain things online. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Next is Councilwoman Cooper Sutton. Let the record show Councilman Spinoza has arrived.
Good morning, and thank you, Chairman. Good morning. Thank you for the presentation. Listening to my colleagues, I don't have any personal stake in this. It's the city of Memphis. And what I've seen through the many, many years sitting back, looking on this entire administration from the past to now, we all have accountability. We have used the funding and misused the funding. It's nothing personal. This city needs to be looking to move forward. All your clicks, and I'm gonna keep saying it, and all the name bringing and all of that, that's not important. We have a future here. We have children that are here. And we keep talking about we want to bring them back. And you allow these old heads with don't have any envision or any innovation to move this city forward and to move the needle forward because they want the same monies to be given to them and the same way of doing business. And it's over. We need to move the needle in this city. The communities and inputs are very important. We've left them aside. I've asked you, Director Nick, that every management agreement we have, I want to know about them, what they're doing, their funding, and how they're spending the taxpayers' money. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you know. I don't care about names. That means nothing. Mud Island has been sitting over there for years, and nothing has been done. Mahogany opened up that restaurant, Black owned, and took a chance with her own money and her own funding. And no one thought enough of even her with her inspiration to say, let's put something in it just to move it forward. $4 million was given that I from Accelerated. You said something about it, the bathrooms. Don't we have park rangers that we can kind of get over there and just kind of see what's going on? Utilize what we already have. But you old heads don't want to let go of anything. You just want to keep doing business as usual. And you keep getting the same results over and over and over and over again. I think this 13-member body and the new administration is really working hard to see Memphis do something different. So our children and our children's children can grow and have something to look forward to. But instead, you want to just keep doing what you're doing. And we can't continue. It's psychotic. And that means every last one of us need to be at a psychiatrist if we keep doing it the way we've been doing it. So to that, I'm going to end and I'm going to yield the floor. I'm excited to see that Mud Island is back on the radar.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman White.
Thank you, Dr. Warren. I wanted to find out, and I was listening in, and I don't know if I missed it right before I got in. Did we talk about, is there any way for us to track revenues from years back into now to see what kind of revenues are generated from our riverfront? Is there a way for us to do that, like from the past to now?
Well, and so this is where we get into the question of Riverfront, because as it relates to Memphis River Parks Partnership, part of the management agreement and the way it's structured, and again, I want to thank Councilwoman Cooper Sutton for wanting to dig in on a lot of these, and for anybody that wants to, several thousand pages of different management agreements spread across 9 different contracts. But all that to say, there is financial reporting that we receive from Memphis River Parks Partnership, which has existed since its time as the Riverfront Development Corporation, and we can definitely follow that because it's standardized financial reporting. I believe the TDZ itself, which encompasses the larger area, can probably give us a better sense of how the financial, how much taxable spending has happened over the past 2 decades or so. But that'll be a part, and I think Chief has alluded to this, that'll be a part of what we're evaluating through this study is what sort of economic impact any investment that the city and council chooses to make into this area, what sort of returns we would see off of that.
Thank you. And I just want to say the reason I asked that is to Councilwoman Easter Thomas's point about we want to have a vibrant Memphis. When I think about that, one of the things that we often talk about is that we recycle money, meaning that we need things that attract outside people to bring new dollars to Memphis, sales tax to Memphis, to generate revenue. And the way that you do that is you have attractions. And one of the first things I think of when I think of the attraction to Memphis is our river. Of course, we have our culture, music, but the riverfront. And I do want to be an active part of figuring out how do we transform our riverfront such that it's a place that attracts people from all over the world. What does that look like? How do we bring that attraction so that we can start bringing those dollars in? And the way that I look at it is once you start to develop that and revitalize that and create that as an attraction, then that ultimately will be able, it's going to spread out to all of the districts. But we have to figure out what that thing is. And in my mind, the riverfront is that thing. The riverfront is it. And so I'm really excited to see that this is back one of our focuses. This is where I think we can really shine and differentiate ourselves from other places.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Got Councilwoman Swearingen Washington next, but one thing I'd like you guys to remember is that before a lot of you were on the council, we had a great presentation about a zip line that people wanted to do down there, and actually ran into some of the people who were involved in that, and they pretty much said they were ready to go, but we just pulled it as an administration and didn't move forward. Can you comment on what happened to that and why that didn't occur? Because I thought we had a lot of council excitement about it at the time, and I'm wondering what occurred. Do you remember? Anybody have some information for us on that?
So I'll find out about that. I do know that I met personally with those that were interested, and I'll find out where that is in the pipeline as far as moving forward.
According to what I heard from them is that we just pulled it, and we just saying we didn't move forward with it. And I think what we heard was it was the people who were bringing the lawsuits concerning, I guess, the Brooks wouldn't let us use it. But according to what I've heard, that's not the case. That was considered a public use, and they weren't worried about that.
Yeah, so I'm not necessarily knowledgeable about that point of
bring
it.
Bring that back to us,
and
let us know.
I'll bring that back, and I'll give you specific information regarding that.
Was that your question? Okay, Councilwoman Swearingen Washington.
Thank you. That was one of my questions. Also to ask about potential of maybe having a Ferris wheel. I've seen that in a lot of cities that we've had conferences, that they have Ferris wheels of little bubbles of things that stop in different formats.
So I do know in talking to Mary Young and talking to Ms. Coletta and Director Walker again, we've talked about activating points and parts of the area for amenities. So again, we'll bring that back to you. What we want to do is, as opposed to spitballing and hitting you with this idea, we want to bring this back and make it make sense so that it's not to get you excited, then all of a sudden it dies and it dissipates. No different than the zip line. I want to make sure that what I bring back to you, I can actually make sure it happens. And then we can of course, if we can make it happen, understand the revenue that we can generate from that and how we can activate this and it can be sustainable.
But just as Councilman Warren said, we don't want it to be a conversation and it drops off.
And I understand that, but here's the one thing, and I'll caution us. We put a lot of money into Beale Street Landing. We thought it was going to be a great idea. We then built a deck, and we're not actively using it. And so what I mean by that is we invest in things, and we don't bring it forward, and we don't actively use it. And so, again, I caution us to make sure what we do, we're intentional, and to use one of your colleagues' they talked to me and we have to develop with a purpose and stay with that purpose. Because if we just throw it out there and we spitball it, then it becomes a wasted resource.
Thank you.
What I wanted to say is I know that I'm very intentional with all of the parks in my district and make sure that they have resources. Nick, you my witness?
Listen,
But the unique thing about Mud Island is we're all held, even though it's in District 7, we're all held accountable.
Yeah.
Because it is a tourist attraction. It's the first park that you see when you're going across the bridge, and it shouldn't look as if it's dead.
And
When I was over there, even some of the tourists that were walking asked me, what's going on? What happened to the park?
Yeah.
So we're all held accountable, and it's not personal. It's business. It's money. It's Memphis.
And you're so right, but the one thing that we have to consider, we build, and then you confer this to the successor and say, do something with it. Well, how can I do something with something that you built and it's just not even really functional? And we have to really think about that because we built something that wasn't really functional. And you have to consider that. When you build a building that doesn't originally have gas and then you have to then convert it later. So we have to think about the things that we build and then develop purposefully. We are going to activate this. You have our promise and our commitment. We're going to work to this, but we are going to have to kill the noise on the line. We are going to have to then be directed and focused. The three of us will come with a plan. In the interim, we will program that park. We will talk to the high heavens and let you know what we do in the meantime to activate that park. There will be people that will give us input. Your input will be heard, but not always included, because it will not be congruent to what we need to activate this park and consistent for the public. Doesn't mean it's not a bad idea, it's just not consistent with what the public needs.
I wanted to say for the record, I know that Jared Price is here, but the Downtown Neighborhood Association has offered to assist. Is there any way that they can be invited to the table?
So again, the way it's going to work, and I think Chief has said, is that we're not prescribing anything right now. That when you do these plans, because again, we went through one of these. Director Zena is about to update their comprehensive plan, and there is a structure to it, and to his point, there will be lots of feedback. How that feedback is weighted and all that stuff is the secret sauce behind how you come out with a useful plan. But I will say there will be a lot of feedback, and I think that everyone that's a constituent, their voice will be a part of this process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman White. Then Cooper Sutton.
I just thought about, and this was before I was even on the council, and Councilwoman Easter Thomas headed this up when we were doing redistricting, and we got started a little late, but what we did was we uploaded different redistricting maps. And I don't know if one thought is, because we always talk about we want people to be involved, but we don't really formulate that with intentionality. And so one thing that I was thinking about maybe we could consider, or you all could consider, because I guess this is something you all have to spearhead right here, is maybe some type of citywide contest where people can upload different ideas. Or even if not a contest, people can do it just voluntarily. And of course, still have the meetings and all those things. But at some point, it may not be just one plan. Of course, still utilize the experts to make sure that it's functional and practical. But we may end up mixing a lot of different ideas together to make one big, great project. So that's just something to consider.
I want you to participate in our Parks Master Plan update because literally that is part of our process. We have models basically train models with little dogs and trees and playgrounds and all that fun stuff. And that's a part of the process is visioning. It's a charrette. And again, this is not an overnight thing. This is going to take time and it's going to be intentional, but that'll be a part of the process.
Thank you. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
And I concur with my Councilwoman White and Councilwoman Eastern Thomas. I would love to see some of our youth involved as well, to include them because they are our future in this city and what it should look like. And if we don't be very careful and intentional and move aggressively because we're so far behind, the bridge over there, West Memphis, Arkansas, is going to snatch our tourism right from under our nose.
That's right.
Because they are working on something. And we are still here doing what you all been doing for the last 8 years, 20 years since I've been here. And nothing has evolved out of it. So if we don't watch ourselves, we're going to miss the ship again with a lot of talk. And one lady said, no action. And spending taxpayers' dollars on worthless things instead of really utilizing. So really think hard about involving our youth and our young adults, who is our future. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Walker, and then we're at 8:17, so we're doing good today.
I see, aren't we? That's wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
They're the same.
Okay, I had no idea. I'm glad you told me
Council-
that. Well,
yeah.
I'm gonna hop in the queue.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. To your point, Councilwoman Cooper Sutton, also there's a new amphitheater in South Haven, and they're booking shows, and I know we're gonna go down there and spend money, and once again, taking revenue from the city. So I just wanted to make that point for those of you who are not aware of that. But I did want to comment again on the stakeholder input also, as it currently is, and people feel that it's been abandoned and neglected. And I've made the point earlier in previous meetings about there's still activity over there. Can this stakeholder input include people who are currently and have previously been engaged over there in recent years, like Dr. Bowden, Wine on the River, Curtis Givens, CGI Entertainment, and currently Attorney McCullough with Mahogany, and also Tanya Dyson. And if they were here today, I would love to just ask them, in spite of what all Mud Island currently isn't, why do you choose Mud Island for your time, your resources, and your investments? I would just love to hear from them in that respect. And also, once again, please try to reach out to them and include them in your assessment. Thank you. I yield the floor.
So
Thank you,
what
Councilwoman.
I like to do is, and I hear your concerns in with regard to stakeholder and subject matter expert engagement. What I like to do is allow for the Parks Division to share with you all in documentation what the master plan and their engagement process looks like with you all, so that you see it, because that what you all are asking for is all inclusive in that, and that's what they do. And so that you understand that what you're asking for, you're going to get that. And so those who want to participate, their input will be in there. You know, what I wanted to do is just level set and understand that when you get 3,000 voices, you can't go in 3,000 directions. You're going to have to come and you're going to have to incorporate and consolidate and have one voice and move forward. And that is one thing that we will have to understand. You all as a council have to move in one voice. And so there's going to have to be compromise. And that's what we have to understand. But I just wanted to make sure that you all understand what that process is, and we'll provide that to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just so people who came after we opened up understand, what we did is we combined items number 1 and 2 and had administration and Mud Island present at the same time. So this is part of that presentation.
Well-
So Councilwoman Logan, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, I appreciate it. And I do apologize. My discussion, my request to be on the agenda was not about Mud Island, it was about the riverfront. If you go back and look at the last committee meeting, the discussion I want to have is about the riverfront. And I've met with you all separately and discussed that, but I do want to have this conversation. So as you go back, you can, take this perspective as well in your discussions. But my desire is to see a comprehensive plan for the entire riverfront. And that includes the asset of Mud Island. But we also have, as I mentioned before, the asset. As a matter of fact, based on Councilwoman White, what she said, that was a part of the conversation last time. Let's not look at the riverfront just as Mud Island, but the riverfront begins over at MLK and ends at the Wolf River, and that includes several assets. And the reason I think we continue to go back and forth is about Mud Island is because we don't have that comprehensive plan. Well, we have a comprehensive plan, but we don't have that discussion around where we're going with the comprehensive plan that was put in place, and that was in
2017. And
2017.
Actually, just to clarify, so that you're aware, that's what we're talking about. So the Mud Island part has been central, and we've talked about that several times, but at the outset, we said this is a comprehensive plan going from MLK to Greenbelt. And so that is our intent to bring back forth to you. When we do this study and we do this evaluation, it will encompass all the riverfront properties.
As well, and I also want you to include, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate seeing the original vision for the entire riverfront from, Mud Island all the way down. Definitely want to make certain that we build on using the entire riverfront as an asset and an attraction, having a theme for the entire riverfront. Like most cities have River Walk, or they have, they use their riverfront as a thing. In San Antonio, in Detroit, people go to that city for their riverfront. And us having music and water as our assets, we definitely want to incorporate that. And we talk about the restrooms. I really want us to get away from the traditional restroom and look at sustainable, self-cleaning, vandal-proof restrooms that are in all cities now. People don't really use brick and mortar restrooms, but in smart cities, smart parks, making certain that it's Wi-Fi, that we're using technology. We have those restrooms that are self-cleaning. They are everywhere. Anybody can go in at any point in time, and it's safe and it cleans itself. And just moving forward with a riverfront that is like every other city. So community engagement is great, but if you only give them piecemeal to discuss it, and you don't give a framework for that comprehensive plan or that strategic plan for the entire riverfront, they'll just be talking about different assets like we have been doing for a long time. So I'm glad to see that we're moving in the direction to seeing the entire riverfront as the attraction. That is the attraction. And how do you build in that theme? And, like I mentioned to all of you, we have so many opportunities here with the Civil Rights Museum, MLK Park, Slave Haven, Memphis Music, and using all of those, connecting all of them. The Civil Rights Museum, people come to Memphis, they can come for that. They can come have a family reunion at MLK Park, then go see Civil Rights Museum. And just like Nashville has the African American Music Museum, we can have something like that on Mud Island using the museum that's currently there, transforming it, and then having concerts at the riverfront. That's just one idea of a comprehensive thread that goes throughout the riverfront as a river walk or as a destination itself. So I'm really glad to see that. I would love to see that when you come back, a theme or reason for people to use this as a destination. Making certain that we use our smart assets, camera security, lighting, as everyone said, Blue Brigade, or some type of system that's down there for security and engagement with attractions. And then let's look at other cities. If you could bring back some peer cities or other cities that have a phenomenal riverfront, and what you're using to base that, your presentation on, that would be great as well. So I really appreciate you all being here and being open to just moving forward in that vein. I yield back, Chair.
Thank you, and we're going to finish up and close at 8:30. Councilman Spinoza, you have our last questions.
8:26, almost 8:27, Councilman Warren. I think we're going to make it.
I think you're going to make it.
Real quick, and I actually had a couple questions, but I do want us to stay on schedule, so I'll do that. Real quick, Director Walker, and I also was listening on the way in, Councilwoman Easter Thomas made the insinuation that Antonio could be our director by the end of the day. Sounds exciting. And then we're interim. Anyways, how did the Audubon opening go? I wasn't available to be here last week, and my understanding was
you want to bring up
great.
a happy topic? All right,
And,
man, I'm jazzed about this. All right,
yeah.
Audubon exceeded my wildest expectations, and for as much as I can be a curmudgeon, I'm an incredibly optimistic person. We had 286 rounds on opening day. It is I've driven by multiple times, and it's constantly action going on there. And the thing that I will tell you probably brought me the most joy is both there and at Overton and at Pine Hill, three places I've played recently because I have a problem with golf. Seeing 15, 16-year-old kids walking the course. Saw them lined up the other day over at Overton and saw a huge group out at Pine Hill the day before that. And I'm seeing the same thing at Audubon, which tells me that we are, as a city, as it relates to our comprehensive golf strategy, headed in the right direction. But it has been, I've heard nothing but praise, which is amazing, again, considering that we're working out of a single wide trailer on the side of Cherry. So,
Well, great job. I was out of town. Wanted to say thank you. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Director Adams, too. I'm excited to vote for you today. I'm not afraid to say that. So thank you, Chairman. I'm good. We've got meetings coming up, Nick. I'm excited. All right.
Councilwoman Walker and Councilwoman Cooper Sutton have one question. Councilman Cooper Sutton wanted to know if you could bring us back what's going on at the Bellevue Tennis Center. Okay, and Councilwoman Walker, you have the
Just a
final
quick
question.
comment.
Comment, okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. To your point about seeing the teenagers, so I had an event last month. Yeah. At the Links Whitehaven, Putting with Pearl, and it was geared toward millennials, but we had all demographics there. People brought small children, and all the way across we had seniors, and I just wanted to say that. It went well. Thank you.
Dusty will not stop talking about it. He said it was an amazing event. You should be incredibly proud.
Thank you.
I just love the name. Hey, guys, thank you so much for this meeting and for this information. We look forward to this comprehensive plan. I think that's going to end. Council members, just get with Mr. Walker and let's put our input there, and I'm sure we're going to hear
same old. And the next year, we're here again trying to figure out what we need to do. And then again, I see you have a forensic audit that's going on. PwC is going to perform a forensic audit. And is this a local or is it someone outside?
This is someone outside. PricewaterhouseCoopers is a nationally known firm that does this work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And how often are we going to be getting updates on where we are? Because we're babysitting right now. We're the babysitter, am I right? We're making sure that, you know, we get better, we move forward, that matter moves forward, because we have a demographic out here in this city of poor people that the stigma for many years has caused us to be in this place. Because I don't think if it was poor people, we might have been in a better place. Where I come from and where I've lived at in many different places, and transit and has been just abroad. Professionals that look like you and I rode the transit. So what I'm saying is, how do we make sure moving forward under your watch and your administration that we do not get here again? Hopefully that we're never here again, and being transparent and being truthful with the people, because I'm constantly going to these meetings with MATA and their union, and it was a lady that she was disabled, she was in a wheelchair, and that's how she, got around. And the only thing she said was, for the years and many years, she keeps hearing the same thing over and over. And I know we have a new interim CEO, and I understand that we have a new team. But the transparency and honesty, Mayor, and what the city, our accountability as a city, a 13 body, and your administration, partnering and working together. I'm just going to keep saying this, and I don't know how it's going to reach us as a people here in Memphis. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over, and hearing the same thing, and nothing is being done, and then we come back here again and again. I want to trust the administration. I want to believe in the administration. It's hope. It's hope. Governor Lee told us hope wasn't enough. We need strategy, and we need to execute. He said hope wasn't enough.
Yeah.
He said that. So I believe and I trust that your administration is going to get this where it needs to be for the people out there that I see standing out there, sitting out there, waiting, and sometimes can't even get to work. They lose their jobs because of this system that has been placed for many, many years. And I hear their cry, and I hear their plea, and I see their emails that they've lost their jobs, and how they're going to make it, because of this system here. So my plea is, and my prayer is, that we get it right and take the selfishness out of it and think about the people and the constituents who we say one Memphis. They are part of one Memphis.
Yeah.
I yield the floor.
Yeah, so I reflect your passion, and I will tell you that this is a priority for this administration. We have had countless meetings over the past couple of weeks, and we're going to continue to work together. MATA is not in this alone. We are all in this together, because at the end of the day, it's about the people of our city that rely on this transit system to do their daily business, to get to and from groceries, to get to and from doctor's appointments. We understand how critical this is, and that's the reason that we are taking these extensive steps to ensure that we don't end up here again. Our team will report as often as you need to.
Thank you. Let the record show that Councilwoman Green has joined us. I have Councilwoman Walker and then Councilwoman Logan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't expecting to see you for this item, but it's always a pleasure, and y'all know I'm a neophyte. I was expecting to hear from Ms. Malden. this morning and the MATA administration, is that allowable?
I mean, it's certainly allowable, but I would just clarify that I didn't know she was going to be in town. She did inform me, somebody informed me yesterday that they would be here. But the intent of this presentation was for the administration to give you, the council, an update on what we've been doing and allow MATA to hear your feedback so when they come back for their next presentation, they can be responsive to it. But certainly she's here.
Let me interject a little bit. Okay, yeah, she was not. I told her to be here today.
Okay, so just for clarity, it says here, public transit discussion, all council district requested by administration. So that was just kind of open, and that was my bad that I assumed that she would be before us and not the mayor, but it doesn't designate anyone.
Let me get a few little things straight right now.
Okay.
This should not even been on here. I put it on here, okay? I was left out the loop. Chair, you put me over transportation. You told me I could handle this. I'm gonna handle it this time. But I don't want nobody to leave me out the loop, okay? This paper right here is my paper. Be honest. I thought we were gonna meet with our attorney first. This meeting should not be. That's why I asked her to be here to see what we were talking about. But from this point on, I'm gonna let everybody know, if it pertains to me or any other council person, don't bring it to us if we are not aware of everything. I was not aware. It kind of pissed me off. I was gonna go to hell off today. I don't feel good today. That's the reason why I'm not. But you know, it's kind of insulting to me. But like I said, I just wanted to hear this today. And I think all of us need to know all the facts before anything happens. And that goes for the administration. Because this council, this is a different council right now, okay? You are a new mayor. We want to help you along the way. But we don't want to be left out in the loop with anything anymore. That's why I just wanted to say that. But
Thank
that's
you
why
for
I
that.
invited her. Did you want to say something today? No, but I invited her.
Okay, and that's fine for her to be here. I had some questions for her. That's why I was trying to get the clarification of what's what.
Since we're here,
Is it okay for me to ask her a question?
Yes, ma'am, because we got to 9:15,
Okay.
so we got a little time, so we can ask. And then
We got a little time, and I'm gonna share it. I ain't gonna take up all the time, y'all.
That's all right.
Thank you for that clarification, and we are hoping and praying that you feel better. So, you're welcome. So, thank you for your presentation. I appreciate that, and I love the word critical, because this is critical. And to my colleague, Cooper Sutton, and I'm repeating myself from an earlier meeting, but in Memphis, public transportation is synonymous to poverty. And when you hear public transportation, a lot of people make the analogy to people from a certain demographic, a certain economic level, and we've got to get beyond that. And I do want us to, one of the ways to approach that is with the marketing and the marketing collateral and using people from all demographics, including white males with a laptop, in the marketing collateral for MATA. We talk about progressive. We use this word progressive, but progressive cities, they all have progressive public transportation. Ms. Malden, thank you for being here today. Lovely hair as usual. My concern is surrounding, in the meantime, while we're dealing with these critical issues, my concern is about the bus riders. I'm getting texts, people coming up to me in Walmart, and just a plethora of things, holding space for Ms. Fully Love. and the morale of the staff. And so I can't unpack all this here, but the morale of the staff, so are your union, the MATA union, what is their official name? Let me start there because I don't want to make reference and don't have their name correct.
Good morning, Bakara Malden, Interim President and CEO, Memphis Area Transit Authority. Let me first say it's really an honor to be here, and I'm excited about this conversation because in order for things to move forward, there has to be dialogue around it. And so I applaud the mayor and I applaud you all for making this a priority because it really is, it's critical, and it really is critical. The official name of our union, of course, is the Amalgamated Transit Union, also known as the ATU.
Okay, thank you. So it has been brought to my attention that the union was circulating a petition on your behalf. Could you tell us about that petition?
To be quite honest, I can't. I was alerted to the petition recently. I've been on vacation for the last week, and so I think it happened while I was on vacation. So I don't have any details about it at all.
Okay, that's fine. So I'll move on. So that's fine that you really didn't know a lot about it because I don't know a lot about it either. But briefly, there was or currently is a petition circulating asking that you be made the permanent, is it director, president of MATA? So the union is circulating a petition on your behalf. And I don't necessarily have an issue with that, but this last pay period, but for employees to be told after payday, you got your raise, so sign the petition. My question is, and maybe you all can answer that or you can answer that, but is that appropriate?
Let me say, if that behavior took place, no, that would not be appropriate.
But let's not say if it did. I trust my sources. I have video, and so let's be correct in the language. And I'm not trying to attack you. I'm just trying to share some information here on behalf of the employees and the bus riders, because morale is really low.
It is, and I appreciate you sharing that information. As I originally stated, I don't have any information about it. I appreciate any and all support that I receive. I got here in 2021 as the chief of staff and did not come here with the intent of being president and CEO. But as the opportunity has presented itself, I've embraced this community, I've embraced this city, I've embraced this mayor. I believe in one Memphis, just like everyone that's in this room. And so in doing that and embracing that, it really made me start to reach deep and think about, well, how can I be a part of the solution? And so any support of that mission for One Memphis, I appreciate. But again, it's not about Bakara Malden. It's actually about creating and transforming transit for the city because, as Councilwoman Cooper Sutton said, it's critical, it's necessary. We're not the poor folks people mover. We are a viable source of mobility that needs to get better. And so any and everyone who is on board with helping us do that, I am all for it and appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for that. I have just two more points quickly. It's something about that petition and how it's being handled that I'm just not comfortable with that. And so I'm just gonna have to seek some other sources about that, but I'm not comfortable with that, it being used in with respect to you got your raise, so sign the petition. I just don't think that's appropriate. If it's appropriate and legal and all that good stuff, then okay.
And I understand. And again, I don't know anything about that. I've been very focused on monitoring the fiscal activities, giving input on how we can make our operations better. I don't have any knowledge of that or have anything to do with that, but we would absolutely be happy to look into that and report back on that.
Okay, so I'm getting text here that the petition is still being circulated, so I'm going to move on from that. And finally, can we have some PSA announcements, some signs on the buses? how will we circulate and maybe bring Director Houston in on this, but can we get some communications out there to the public to let them know do they know what's going on? Do they know why a bus never shows up? Do they know why a bus is late? Because it's a mess. I'm not saying you created it, but it's a mess. And I think just like the ratepayers need to know some basic stuff about XAI, I think that the citizens need to know some basic stuff about what's going on around this. They just out there waiting. They don't know what's going on. They just know it's hot and the buses don't show up. And we even have people who are taking buses on a regular basis to sell blood for money. And those buses are not showing up either. But if we can get some kind of collateral out there to say, we appreciate you, we're going through something right now, y'all can figure out the language, but I think that would be good. And then also, and I close with this, something needs to be done to deal with the morale of the staff. And I'm not speaking for all of them, but I know that morale is low with many of them, and I would like for them to receive something supportive and something that expresses showing appreciation for them as well during this critical time. Thank you, and I yield the floor.
Councilwoman Logan and then Councilwoman Green.
Thank you, Chair.
We got 13 minutes.
Okay, I'll be mindful of the time, and as Chairman says, brevity. And I appreciate you all for being here. I do understand that we are at a critical point and there are a lot of moving parts. I do first and foremost understand that we didn't just get here when you came. So I want to make certain that we don't keep having a tone with you. You are in the seat and are responsible for moving forward, and I know you're going to make sure that happens. I know a lot goes on in a company, and a lot of people don't like the CEO, that work there, and sometimes it's warranted, but my issue is wanting to know for the citizens. So there's a lot going on internally. What are we doing for, and it somewhat builds on what Councilwoman Walker said, what are we doing for the rider, for those that are riding in terms, during this interim, I know it takes up a lot of mind space for you, but what's in place to make certain that we are continuing to provide service to them, focus on them, continue to make sure that experience is what it should be and not leave them out even more so. I know at the last time we talked about the increase in requests for on-demand, and where are we on that? I do want to make sure that we're looking at the data and utilizing data and not being stuck on stupid with these big buses, because we don't have people to fix them. We don't have the money to buy them. And so if you could get back to us in writing, because we can't talk about all the areas today, I'm sure, but the buses that are just sitting or the buses that are broke down, the maintenance, what are we doing for those? And where are we on electric versus, the things that we've talked about in the past? We definitely need updating on that so we can be informed as well. But my concern now is what are we doing for the riders? And as Councilwoman Walker said, keeping them informed and the customer service.
So actually, just yesterday, we announced the launch of the 3T tours, the Transforming Transit Together. I pledged earlier this year that we would involve the community in the process of reimagining transit, and we actually launched a schedule of community meetings. And we're not out there doing it by ourselves. We have a lot of organizations that have partnered with us for these community meetings. That full list of meetings can be found at www.mattertransit.com. And it's a full list of community meetings that are taking place all over the city of Memphis for the next 30 days. And so I'll be happy to have that list sent directly to you all so that you are aware of where those meetings take place. We welcome you to attend those meetings. We're happy to partner with you all if there's something that is missed or an area. happy to partner to make sure, because again, this is not my transit authority, this is our transit authority. And we want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to weigh in and be informed.
So those meetings are going to be to inform the public of what's going on with MATA and what they can expect in the immediate future.
Yes, ma'am.
In terms of being confident that they'll have public transportation.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Do you all have you put in like a call center or a help customer service line, a hotline that people can call just for critical situations that happen, like missed bus or broke down bus, or the bus didn't come? Is there a number that they can call and talk to someone, and you keep track of that and then fix that?
There is it's a small customer service group, but it's 274 MATA is the number that you can call. If you have questions, if you need to know where your bus is, if you need help plotting a trip. And so that customer service group is open. They have limited hours. I think there's from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I have to double check with the team, but the hours run somewhere in that range, and you can call them directly, or you can go online to check out the MATA tracker. That also helps you get an idea of where buses are. And then lastly, we have Omni Alerts, which is a text to phone situation that actually updates you when buses are late or delayed. It tells you how long they're delayed. If a bus is actually not coming, it's all that information is included in the Omni Alerts. But it is a service that you have to subscribe for. And
Okay,
so
now,
anyone at the transit centers, if a rider needs help or they don't have that information, our ambassadors at the transit centers will be happy to help them get that, have that loaded onto their phone so that they have it right at their fingertips.
Now, you said that you led into that explanation with you don't have a lot of people in that.
It's a small group, so sometimes wait times are higher than ideal, but we do have a customer service group. And so as funding permits, we'd love to expand that to make sure that we're able to get to those calls in a timely manner, but we do have a customer service group.
Seeing as though this is a critical situation, Mayor Young or Chief, is there any way that can be supported, a call center, or I don't know if 211, or is there any way to get some help with that? Because people being able to call and find out where's the bus, when it's coming, what else I can do on demand or whatever is real important when they're trying to get to the doctor and things like that. So are y'all working on that type of support for them?
I think we would have to learn a little bit more about what the volume of calls are, and but we're open to the dialogue.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it, but I'm very interested in making certain that, as Councilwoman Walker said, that we're communicating with the riders and the people.
Well, we're working to get that right, and we are absolutely committed to partnering with the mayor and with you all to truly transform the system, because it does need transformation, and we're excited about what the future holds. This unfortunate position we find ourselves finds us in the midst of a great opportunity to get it right.
Well, I don't know how many of them are interested in reimagining, but they just want to get the bus right now. They just want to get the buses working. They want to get the work, and the people want to get paid, and those basic nuts and bolts things right now. I don't know if they're in the point of wanting to reimagine it, but I think at y'all's level you should. I appreciate that. Yield back, Sharon.
Thank you, Chair. I think what you hear is a lot of passion from the council members and from the administration, because we believe in public transportation. There's so many reasons. It makes our economy stronger. It lessens inequality. I mean, we know a majority of our riders are African American. They are women. They make less than $20,000 a year. It can reduce the isolation of our elderly and give access to those who are disabled. It can be good for our environment. It can be all of those things. But right now it's really broken. And our number one power here as we sit is the budget. And we allocated $30 million in the budget as a line item. And when we had the budget discussion, I remember very specifically talking to you about how you're going to make up the rest, because one of the items that you had in your plan was $10 million, for example, from the county. And I told you you weren't going to get more than $1 million. I knew that that's where the budget was going. I knew that's where the votes were, and that's what you got. So that's another $9 million in the hole. And what I've been able to discern right now is there's about a $60 million deficit. And I have not seen any updated plan for making up that difference. I understand the forensic audit is coming, but I am desperately concerned about how we're going to make up that hole, and also how much of the 30 million has already been spent. So what I would like from the administration is possibly a report of how much we've already spent and when we're spending again and what we're spending it on. I think we want to keep these buses running, so we want to keep payroll and things like that. And, this is just a way for us to continue to check in with you because, the last council, there was a $20 million bridge loan and it disappeared. And it didn't come back up until we were in budget again. I don't want to wait that long. I want to know where that 30 million's going, and I would like regular reports. I don't think that's a big ask.
So as a part of the update that Councilwoman Cooper Sutton requested, we will ensure that we include an update on the budget, the $30 million and how much has been expended. I think for now, I'm almost confident that we've made 2 payroll payments. I think one was around 1.9 and the other one was around 1.5. So that's the total amount that has been expended. There are some operational costs that I think the team is working through now to determine how much for the operational side will be paid out over the next week or two.
And then, this is probably joint, not necessarily just on Ms. Malden's shoulders, but we need an updated plan for the deficit. And it can be part of the reimagining. It can be part of these conversations we're having with the FAA and how that money plays into this. But we need, we need a realistic plan. So again, I don't want to have numbers brought to us that are wishes and dreams and requests or ask, but are real numbers that we perceive will be coming in and when. Because otherwise, we'll be back where we were, council, at this past budget with another giant hole for us to fill and another request for a tax increase to fill it. And I don't want to get there. So it is going to be a combination of what we've already granted out and oversight of it and how we're making up this hole. So if y'all could you don't have to have the answer today. I don't expect you to have the answer today. In fact, if you have the answer today, then it's a little concerning for me. I want to know how you're going to work through this process, but it needs to be outlined in a real budget that I can see. Thank you. I yield, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond to that? While I cannot identify all of the specifics that you asked, I think it is important to acknowledge the steps that we are taking. We put before our Matter Board of Commissioners a balanced budget, a draft balanced budget of $67.8 million. We are having our Finance Committee meeting on August 20th to dig deeper into those numbers, to talk about some of the hard decisions that the board will have to make with regard to how we execute our service. And so we are moving in that direction. That draft budget does actually include some service scenarios that our team has vetted with help from the MPO and other consultants for the board to consider. Ultimately, the change in service and the budget on our end is the responsibility of the Matter Board of Commissioners. And so they have that information. They're looking over it, and we'll be discussing it in more detail. So hopefully when I come back before you, I'll be able to talk in terms of more specifics. But again, our budget has not been approved yet by the Matter Board.
Yeah, and I think that's important because that budget you just said is a very different number than the budget we were presented. And just on the base of what you've just said to me, it reflects drastic cuts. And that will put incredible pressure on the public. That can mean MATA drivers losing their jobs. That can mean other people losing their jobs that can't get to them because they can't take the bus, right? Because they're losing their route. So I don't want to be on the back end of this process and be presented with, here's what we've done. I would like for us to be able to have a conversation as the process is playing out. So that's what I'm asking for, and just some accountability of the money that we've already allocated.
And we've provided a copy of that draft budget to you all through the general counsel. We provided it this morning. So I know you haven't had a chance to look at it, but you have that, but you do have that information. And of course, if you have any questions about it, I'm just a phone call or email away if you have any questions about it.
Yes, sir. When is that, thank you, Chair, when is the update coming? I know we said that she asked for, and when is that update coming? The reason why I ask is because if there are looming cuts and drastic changes for the rider, I'd like to see Plan B, so that it won't just be an announcement that goes out and then everybody's scrambling, don't know what to do. But if the communication can begin or be set such that it won't be so alarming and so detrimental for the riders. So, Mayor.
So I think there's two different updates. Like the update I was referring to was really coming back to the council with an update on how the administration and MATA have been working together on getting a final budget and, doing the financial aspects in terms of, the service related disruptions or things of that nature. Those are updates that MATA would certainly be willing to provide. And I think I would leave it in Bakar's hand to say when they would give that update.
And the first thing you said was there's a forensic audit that is happening to talk about the financials in the past and what happened and how we got there and how we're not going to get there. The second, and then the one you're bringing is to discuss the way forward, the budget and way forward.
Exactly.
And the third one, could it be the service delivery model now and in moving forward? I want to really hone in on the customer and what the plan B for the customer and what's going to happen with that immediately and long term.
So
if you could bring that back.
Whenever we are invited to come back for a general update.
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks.
Right. 2 weeks. Thank you.
So we'll be back in 2 weeks with the same information that we're providing in the 3T tours. Because again, that's where that dialogue is actually intended to start in those meetings. We had to inform the board of what scenarios we're looking at, what are we basing the projected budget on? And so that's why they have that information before them. But we are absolutely committed to being transparent and sharing that information with the community, which again is why we set those community meetings to make sure that there is a process. We're actually required by law to engage the public. It's a part of our Title VI process. So we intend on upholding all of those commitments.
So you can bring it here in 2 weeks and then it'll go on a road show, around the community, and we can let them know that they can get more information and questions at those meetings, but
that is
we
correct.
Can share it here. Okay,
that
thank you. You're back, Chair.
Okay, and after this here, what I would like to do, thank you both, and encourage us to ride the bus, to encourage us to put our cars down. We got a lot to say about a lot of things, but as a community and as a city, let's encourage each other to ride the bus. I would love to ride the bus. And to help improve what's going on so we can actually see, because we're sitting behind here. But moving forward, when we get MATA where it needs to be with the mayor's help and their plan and moving forward, I would love to see us ride the bus more and getting to work instead of having this stigma as a poor people's bus. I think we need to start riding the bus a little bit more. I yield.
Okay, everybody. Ms. Marlin, thank you for coming. Mayor, Chief, I'll see y'all 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, and 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.
Until we get it right, okay? I want our legal lady all part of it, please, okay? Within the next 3-4 months, we want to have everything kind of complete. Now, when is y'all budget gonna be finished?
Our finance committee meeting is August 20th. The earliest they can vote on it is at our board meeting at the end of the month.
Of August?
Of August.
Okay, let's get all of that together.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you. And if there's no further business, this committee is adjourned. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
Oh, you all are so chipper this morning. Beautiful. This is going to be a great day. Today is August 6th. It is now 9:28 a.m., and I hereby call the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee of the Memphis City Council to order. Ms. Cole, will you please call the roll? And all council members in the back, please come on in.
Dr. Easter Thomas. Councilwoman Logan. Present. Councilwoman Swearingen Washington.
Present.
Councilwoman Walker. Present. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton. Dr. Warren. Chair White.
Present. Thank you, Ms. Cole. First, before we get started, I would like for us to take a moment of silence for our recently fallen officer, Officer Demetrius Johnson. Thank you. On the agenda, we have item number 1, a resolution to appropriate $1,215,000 of the City of Memphis Division of Memphis Police Services CIP project PD 02013 FY18 Police Academy renovation, all council districts sponsored by the administration. May I please have a motion and a second? We have a motion from Councilwoman Cooper Sutton and a second by Councilwoman Walker. Is there someone here to present from the Memphis Police Department? Good morning. Please introduce yourselves for the record, and you all may proceed with your presentations.
Rhonda Hampton, 170 North Main, Assistant Chief of Administrative Services.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So on the Police Academy renovation, y'all know that's the move towards the lead abatement to reduce the officers' exposures to lead levels. You know, we've had some quite a few officers get tested and have high lead in their bloodstream. So this is a part of the move to correct that. We're currently awaiting the initial cost estimate for the actual mechanical system to be enter in, and that's the priority of this funding.
Is that the conclusion of your presentation?
Yes, ma'am, for the academy. And on the violent crimes unit renovation, the next one.
We're not there to that one yet. What's this feedback I'm getting, you all? I wanted to stop. Are there any council members in the queue? You can go on to the second presentation. Well, we need to take a vote. Seeing that there's no questions, we'll take a voice vote on this resolution. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. This will go down for, this will go on our next meeting's agenda. Item number 2 is a resolution to appropriate $200,000 of the City of Memphis Division of Police Services CIP project PD 02018 Violent Crimes Unit renovation, all council districts, sponsored by the administration. May I have a motion and a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Councilwoman Cooper Sutton and a second by Councilwoman Swearingen Washington. You may proceed with your presentation.
Yes, ma'am. On the violent crimes unit renovation, it's to replace the roof on the building and remove the mold and mildew from the building, and also to bring the bathrooms up to ADA compliance in the rest of the building, and some code upgrades to the building.
Are there any members in the queue? Seeing that there are no members in, Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
Thank you, Chairwoman White. So you're going to replace the roof, mildew update. So as of now, is this being occupied by anyone with any of these issues now that you've been presented for the CIP?
No, ma'am. Right now, the violent crimes unit has been relocated.
Okay.
Until we can do these modifications.
These modifications?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have an ETA on when you're gonna start? I mean, once these funds are allocated, how long would this?
As soon as we get our updated cost estimate,
Okay.
we can put out our legal notice to go to bid. We've went through our architect and we done got the plans laid out, the blueprints. We're ready to roll as soon as we get that cost estimate. Back in last June of last year, we had some funding for this, but the construction cost estimates came in over budget. So that's why we had to wait to this year to actually get the additional funding, because we had to do the roof, because you don't want to do the roof. Well, you don't want to renovate the interior of the building until you get your roof on. That way you won't continue to have leaks and then you just mess up everything you just renovated.
Okay. So the 200,000 is going to cover everything that you all need?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. All right, I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Cooper Sutton. We're going to, anyone else in the queue on this matter? Seeing that there are no other council members in the queue, we're going to take a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. This will go down on our next meeting's agenda. Councilwoman Swearingen-Washington, you're recognized.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to ask, what are we gonna do about these people stealing these cars? They doing it in the daylight. I had someone, even in the office building, got at a law firm, had his car stolen at 1:30 in the afternoon. Are we using drones, helicopters, cameras? How are we gonna get ahead of this?
No, we're not using our drones. We did actually have we had a presentation, a drone presentation with an out-of-town company. So we're looking to buy drones, but in our daily meetings and in our command meetings, which we have every Monday, we do have a plan with the colonels. They're coming up with different ideas as far as trying to combat this problem. So we're actively working. The officers are actively working. We're getting our overtime details together, and we're trying to put up cameras in, certain locations. So we are working on it.
And do the precincts have an active plan of visibility of the officers driving around, really being out there in the streets?
Yes, ma'am. Our officers are actively patrolling. Yes, ma'am. They're vigilant, and we're doing all we can, but I know we can do more.
What can we do as a council to support? Because that's a shame when sometimes you invited places and it's like, is my car gonna be there? Do I need to take an Uber? Somebody drop me off? You hate to even think that way. It's out of control. How can we get ahead of this? Something. What can we do as a council to help with this?
So we do need more cars, and so right now there's an audit going on as far as our vehicles, and I know we have cars that are out of service, but with that audit and with more cars, the officers really can be in one-man cars instead of two-man cars. And I know sometimes it's on the officers too, because we do have accidents. Well, they have accidents. They're being distracted, so that make our cars unavailable too. But more cars and just being out there, being more vigilant, and officers being in one-man cars instead of two-man cars, and that'll spread it out where we can be in more places.
And then we still have the motorcycles.
Yes, ma'am.
And we use the horses downtown.
Yes, ma'am. We are using.
We have
those.
the bikes.
Yes, ma'am.
And we're using all of those.
Yes, we are actively using our specialized units also.
It's a disconnect somewhere, isn't it?
Oh, Councilwoman Logan.
Oh,
All right, thank you, Chair. I was going to ask about the vehicles that have been wrecked over the last 2 or 3 weeks. Almost every time you look at the news, there is a report about officer-involved accidents. Do you all have any data on that? And what are we doing about those that are caused by the officers? Are you keeping up with those numbers? And we want to keep our officers safe. I don't know. I know at one time they were not supposed to chase and do other things like that. I don't know what the status of all of that is, but I'm very concerned that first of all, for the officer safety and citizen safety. Number two, I know you said you need vehicles, but buying vehicles and they keep getting wrecked and then have to buy more. If we could get an update on that would be great. An update on the number of vehicles that are out of service and why, and how we're planning to put those back in service or get additional ones, or are we going to do something different now that we know? Because there's still reckless driving. We were getting a reckless driving report that might need to start back just to keep us abreast of what's going on. You can hear something in the news, but I would like for us to have the presentation and we can have the dialogue here and come up with solutions together, or at least look at it in our districts. And if there's worse in some districts than it is in others, we all can kind of look at that and see what the trends are and what we need to do, because we need to keep our citizens safe. I was at an event on election night on Chelsea, and a car sped by, missing us just by a hair. And when we got turned out of the parking lot and got to the next stopping light, that vehicle had a wreck, and children were there. And so we knew when we saw him speed by like he did that he was going to end up in a wreck. And lo and behold, when we turned out, he had been in a wreck. Now, he was fine. It seems like it's always there. He was fine, but the other people were really hurt. But that's really bad nowadays.
Get you we have a weekly report from traffic, but as of yesterday, the report was 38% of all MPD accidents. We're at fault, and that's 38%. But that's down from last year. But I can definitely get you that report today, this morning.
What was it last?
I don't have that information, but from our command staff meeting, I did. The DC did advise that it was 38% of all MPD accident. We're at fault, but I can get you that information.
Because I don't know if that affects our insurance and all of those types of things. So if you could bring that information, like a report back on where we are on all of that, the reckless driving that involve police and just in general.
Okay, I can email that to you
Yes,
today
ma'am.
if you like, or do you want me to bring it back?
I would like for you to do both.
Okay, I can do that.
If that's okay, Chairman.
That's fine. And what I was going to say is, and I don't know what because I think we got Councilwoman Cooper Sutton, Councilwoman Walker, and Dr. Warren in the queue, because we don't really have an actual item before us. And so what we can do is, unless it's something that you all, like it's kind of pressing, what we can do is, if you all will send me your questions or concerns, and we can have them come and actually do a presentation on whatever it is that you need. Because I don't know if they were prepared to answer kind of anything other than what was the 2 items that were on the agenda today. And I don't even know if we have the 2 right people for some of these questions, so.
I withdraw one of mine.
Okay.
And the other one, if it's not.
You're recognized, Councilwoman Walker.
Thank you. So with respect to the comments from Councilwoman Swearingen Washington about the different approaches, and you referred to them as special units, are the multiple special units, are they all fully staffed? Do they need additional members to the different special units?
No, ma'am, they're not fully staffed. Because we are short of officers, so they're not fully staffed. We try to keep our officers on patrol, calls for service, that's the most critical part. And then we go to our specialized units, which is our mounted patrols, our motors. We have those units, but they're not fully staffed.
Okay, that was it. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Walker. Seeing no other business before this committee, the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee is hereby adjourned.
We still.
Ms. Keaton, you know what to do.
Councilman Spinoza. Here. Councilwoman Easter Thomas. Present. Councilwoman Green. Present. Councilman Ford. Present. Councilwoman Logan. Present. Councilwoman Swearingen Washington. Present. Councilman Warren. Present. Councilwoman Walker. Present. Councilwoman White. Present. Chair Smiley.
All right, council members, we have 2 items on the agenda for today. As you can tell, I am not Councilman Carlisle. If you didn't know that. Item number 1, discussion on the Memphis City Council Community Grant Program. All council districts requested by Councilwoman Logan and Swearingen Washington. Before I go to the administration, I'm gonna go to Councilwoman Logan, then Swearingen Washington, to discuss since you 2 individuals requested this item. Councilwoman Logan.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I appreciate it, and thank you all for being here today. I asked for this to be on, and I'm sure everyone has been receiving calls and texting. I've stopped in the grocery store and different places about the grant program because it's so important to the citizens of Memphis, particularly the nonprofits that we help to do the work that we all have done, I'm sure, before we got on council, but those that really touch the people. And so it was very concerning for me that this year we all of a sudden had a 3-page document with people that were not eligible. So I was, felt that maybe there was something different this year that hadn't happened in the past that we need to look at as to why so many of them were not compliant, whereas they had been compliant in previous years and actually received the grant. So just wanted to have that dialogue, and I appreciate so much for you having that conversation and kind of sharing exactly what happened and how it happened and your thoughts and your recommendations for way forward, because I do think that we can always tweak and make better. Even though it's a great program, we just want to continue to make it better. So with your ideas that you shared, hopefully we can make it better and we can allow those people that want to serve the community and be a blessing to the citizens of Memphis where we can to do so. So want to make sure that we get all the information to make an informed decision on how we can include those people as opposed to keeping them out.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Councilwoman Logan. Councilwoman Swearingen Washington, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I do appreciate you submitting that information about reflections and getting some input from stakeholders. I believe that one of the concerns that I had was on there. I'm not quite sure, but Brittany, if you'll pass out that document. When we did the revision for the community grant period, one of them was failure to submit a final grant report that is approved by the City of Memphis Finance Division would disqualify an organization from submitting an application for a city council grant for the next 3 years. I wanted to definitely propose that if the documents were not in order, that they would not, it would deny them for the upcoming year as opposed to 3 years, because I felt that 3 years was so harsh, especially for some of these organizations that are just starting and may not know all the nuances, but not having such a harsh consequence for it to be the upcoming year as opposed to 3. Would that be something that we could do?
I agree with that.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. I'm Latrina Jones. I'm the senior manager for the grants administration team. And thank y'all for having me and having this conversation, because I think it was an overdue conversation that we probably needed to have as far as the city council grant program. But I totally agree. As we were reviewing the documentation, we, even though we had reasons for rejections, we didn't think all of them warranted 3 years. Like 3 years is a long time. And these organizations service the community in several different ways. And I feel like we would be at a loss if we were to hold these organizations back from being able to provide the services to the citizens for 3 whole years.
So I would like to propose that we do that revision in our grant proposal for our grant program, our resolution.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, I know we have a question from Councilwoman Walker. We have several questions, and Dr. Warren has a resolution. What I would like to have happen is the presentation by Ms. Jones, and then we start open the floor for the series of motions and resolutions that I almost certain will come. Go ahead.
Okay, so we're going to discuss the city council grant program, and the first thing I want to do is kind of give you guys an overview, because I know it's a lot of new individuals in the room, and I just want you guys familiar with the current process as we are doing it. Okay, so the agenda for this conversation is going to definitely be a team introduction. A lot of you aren't familiar with the team members that work hard behind the scenes when it comes to processing these grant documents and doing the reviews. The next will be the grant process, and this is definitely to get those familiar that haven't had the opportunity to really understand the program. This will be more of an overview for you guys. Fiscal year 24 rejections, I definitely want to talk about that. The recipient challenges, I wanted to add these because, like I said, I did talk to grant recipients, and they gave me a perspective that I didn't have before when it came to this program. Path forward, I want to discuss some changes that can be implemented to benefit the grant recipients and ultimately the citizens of the city, and also questions. Okay, so this slide, this is our team. A lot of you haven't met the team members, but you probably communicated with them via email. We have Karen Hill, who's the Grants Compliance Manager. Alandria Boyd, she's the Senior Grants Analyst for Grants Compliance, and Markel Lewis, he's the Senior Grants Analyst for Grants Compliance. So more than likely when recipients are contacting us, these are the two that they will normally be in contact with. Timory Lewis, she's the Senior Grants Analyst for the Grants Accounting, and Mike Compton, he's the Project Accounting on the Grants Accounting. And Jerome Hughes, he is the Grants Compliance Grants Coordinator. Okay, so this is just basically a smaller background. The Grants Compliance team, we inherited the City Council Grants Program in fiscal year 22. Okay, so our responsibilities include processing the recipient's documentations after the fund approval. So this is after the funds are allocated that we get involved in the process. Initiating grant payments, and we also review the progress reports. Okay, so just to be clear, the application process, that's owned by the City Council Analyst. So the City Council Analysts, they handle the process and involved in the application process. We do not get involved until after the funds have been allocated and approved by City Council. So after the funds are allocated, the grants team is sent a list of the approved allocations and the recipients, and we also get their application package so we can go through them to make sure all the documents are there. We contact the organization to let them know that they've been allocated funding, and if we have any missing documentation in the packet that we discover, we communicate with them at that moment and tell them, hey, can you send us an updated certificate of liability insurance, or hey, your W-9 doesn't have the 501c3 box checked, we need it, So after we get that information, we also draft the contract, and we send the contract to the grant recipient so they can sign. So once they sign that contract and all of their documents are completed and we have everything that we need, then we'll go ahead and take those documents and we'll get them routed to be signed and approved by several different teams. Okay, so at the bottom, I was showing you the flow, and hopefully I'm right. It's the grant senior manager, which is me. I was signed to BNC first. Then we have the CFO. It goes to purchasing, and purchasing, they have to basically do a process where they're doing a little background on these documents, creating contract numbers for each one of them. Then they send it to legal, the CAO, the mayor, and the comptroller. So once the document is fully executed, and only when it's fully executed will the encumbrance be active for it. So, and it takes a minute only because it touches so many people. So I've had questions in the past of how long would it take for a contract to be fully executed from the moment that it was drafted. Sometimes we don't know because it really depends on who has custody of the contract. Because in general, if the person who has custody in DocuSign is on vacation, so is the contract, is on vacation with them, because we have to wait until technically they come back to complete the actual contract. So basically, so to say that, I say that to say that we don't know exactly how long, but we usually put up to 45 days because That's really the standard to a degree, okay? I'm sorry. Okay, so, okay, the grants team, okay, so let me see, contract sent to, okay, yeah, so after we get it signed, after everything gets signed, after everything is fully executed and the contract is signed by all the parties, the grants team initiates the check request. The AP mails them a check or they send them an ACH, and then they can get the money, so now they can spend the money, okay? So they'll go through a period of spending the funding, and eventually they will get notification from the city council analysts that it's almost time for them to submit their reporting. This year, I think the earliest that they sent it was 2 months before the reports were actually due. The notification was sent in March of this year. And in the notification, it also explained what would happen or what could happen if the documentations aren't sent by May the 6th. Okay, so now we're in the final report process. So when we get to the final report process, you know, the reports that are received by the city council analysts, they forward them to our team. So sometimes the grant recipient will send it to us as well, but most of the time they'll send it to the city council analyst, and they'll just forward it to us just to ensure we have it. Okay, so once we get the documentation, these are the guidelines that we were using to review the documentation. Okay, the final grant report and the expense report, we make sure that what we received is completed and is signed. So if we receive the grant report and the expense report, and the grant report isn't signed, we'll just follow up with them and say, hey, can you send the report over again, and this time include your signature. The expenditures, we make sure the expenditures match the budget presentation, because based off of our review, when they ask city council for funding, they itemize the expenditure categories of how they would like to spend the money. So that's one of those checkpoints that we also use. So we look at the expenditures that they put on their budget presentation. We also look at the expenditures that they included on their expense report, and we try to reconcile the two. Qualified spending. So when it comes to grant funds, we want to ensure that the organizations are actually spending the money. So we are looking at the documentation, and we would like for them to have at least 70% of the funding spent. And we only say 70% because we want to give them grace since the reporting is due on the 6th of May and the program ends June the 30th. So we're trying to give them a little grace. So that's where the 70% is coming from. Okay, the budgets, we want to make sure the expenditures fall within the current program period, and the current program period is also stated on their contracts, which is July the 1st through June the 30th. So any expenditures prior to that technically qualifies for last fiscal year's program. So those should have been reported last fiscal year. The receipts and invoices, we ask for those to validate the expenditures on their reporting. And we also ask them to provide a bank statement to validate their invoices. And basically in the past, we've received invoices from organizations that weren't exactly I would just say some were in Microsoft Word, some were in Canva. Some people usually generated documentation, which prompted us to have to create this new guideline of, okay, y'all, now we have to do a bank statement. So the last one was the method of payment. We want to make sure that it was verifiable and reliable. In the past, we've had organizations that would pay in cash, and we wouldn't have any way to verify how that funding was spent. And also, we had organizations paying in cash out, which also gave us the same result. We had no way of knowing how the funding was spent. All we know that it was a transaction. Okay, so let's talk about the outcome this year as far as the rejections that we've had. We have had a significant amount of organizations that were rejected this year for many reasons, but I would say the main reasons was because the final report wasn't submitted, or the documentations that were requested, they weren't submitted, or the report was submitted incomplete. And when I say incomplete, like I said, it's either you didn't send in the expense report or you didn't send in the grant report. Other reasons were, of course, the disallowed payment methods. If something was submitted after the deadline, or if the expenditures went below 70, if the expenditures that you reported did not align with your budget presentation. Okay, so this is more of a breakdown of the rejection. So we say 6% failed to spend the money, 2% submitted past the deadline, 4% used disallowed payment methods, 4% reported prior year expenditures, 18% did not spend according to their budget request, 26% did not submit a report at all, 30% did not provide requested documentation, and 10% did not submit a complete report. Okay, so this is one of the questions that I was asked during conversations with some of you council members when we talked. What changed that made the outcome so different? One of the biggest changes I would say was the firm deadline. And because we only have 2 analysts that are designated to review the documentation, and the city council grant program starts back in June, with the application cycles and everything, we wanted to ensure that we had all of the documentation reviewed. So had we received trickled in reporting, we really won't be able to review those reportings after the deadline because we have already started a new program period. So that posed a problem for us. So we started firm deadlines to ensure that organizations took it seriously, that we really needed the documentation within a certain time frame. Okay, so that resulted in 66% of the rejections. The deadlines were made firm, of course, to ensure the compliance team had time to review them before the new program started. So last year, we had so many reports that just came in at the last minute, and it just kind of caused the issue because we don't want to tell you that we didn't receive the reporting, and then once it come in, we're like, okay, yes, we did, and then it kind of impacts the way that you guys determine how you want to allocate funds for the next fiscal year. So we wanted kind of a clean cut when it came to the deadlines. Recipients were given a deadline also to submit the requested documentation, and because we had such a small time frame of having this completed, we definitely gave them a time frame to submit their information. Another thing that was changed is we used the final report review checklist, and the 2 analysts that I did introduce at the beginning, they're brand new analysts. Well, they're not brand new, but they did not do this process last year. And because we were at the end of the year and we needed to make sure that these documents were reviewed and we checked all the boxes for every single guideline, we created a checklist that allowed them to go ahead and review the documents and just check it off as they determined what was qualified and what wasn't. So it helped our team remain consistent. Okay, so one thing that I did realize after talking to a lot of great recipients about this process is that it's a one-size-fits-all approach, which means we're reviewing it based off of the numbers, based off of the data that's on the reporting, but it's not considering the core programming of the organization. It's not considering the size or what the capabilities are for the organization to be able to meet the compliance needs that we have. Okay, so core programming. This is one of the things that I thought about once I finished talking to one of the grant recipients, okay? The core programming of an organization sometimes is not going to align with how we're reviewing a document. So we're reviewing it black and white. We're reviewing it and saying, okay, they use the disallowed payment method. But when I talked to a grant recipient, she said, well, we have to use that because we're giving money to homeless people. And the only way we can do that is if we use Cash App or cash. You see what I'm saying? So the core programming, sometimes it differs and it does not align with our guidelines, which can trigger another rejection, but it's not a fair one, right? Okay, so the next one is size. So many organizations have limited staffing and technology, and adhering to the report requirements could be challenging. And I've talked to several small organizations, and they basically told me the same thing, that I'm the only one doing this work. I'm doing the reporting. I got my feet on the ground helping the community. I'm doing it myself. And they don't have the people to submit the documentation, to track everything. They are at a loss with this situation. So this is the example. The executive director of an organization is also the person directly serving the community. They cannot afford record keepers, and they are not technically proficient.
Amen.
Okay. Another issue, and this was a big one for us this year, is communication. This was a big factor for us. email communication. So when I talk to these grant recipients and those that did not submit their documentation, I'm like, it's so many, and then it's big organizations, you know. So I called them and I said, so what happened? Why didn't you send your documentation in? And they were like, well, I didn't see the email. Some people say they didn't see the email. Some people say that, you know, the guidelines, or they didn't see the guidelines in their contract. It was just issues of them missing information, you know. And to me, I feel like the biggest flaw in that is just simply sending an email, because I can guarantee you I'm not sitting and waiting on somebody to send me an email in my Gmail account, right? And so it's the expectation that these organizations are waiting for us to send them notifications and send them requests for documents. That can cause a big issue if it goes to their spam or anything, you know. So these ways of communication is not perfect. So that was a big problem. The next one I would say is phone communication. This year was trying for my team because we moved into a new location and we were without phones for a few weeks. And so the grant recipients weren't able to contact us via phone because we simply didn't have phones due to our abrupt move. So that was one of the biggest problems that we had this year. And as I told you, I did talk to some grant recipients. And one thing that kind of touched me is what a few grant recipients said, and these were the small organizations. They expressed that the small allocations keep them at the bottom. Okay, so technically they're only subject to up to 30% expenses, just like the big organizations. And typically up to 30% for someone that's already limited at $15,000 isn't a lot. And we had organizations that got $500.
Absolutely. Ms. Jones, quick question. Well, not question, request. Could you skip to a path forward?
Okay.
Skip to a path forward. Talk about, you know, how we address some of the things that you've seen.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Or what you're doing to address and what we need to do to address it.
Got you.
I know we have some eager council members.
Okay.
And you've already, first of all, let me say, you've done an amazing job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I was making some side comments to Ms. Keaton here, and I was like, she's doing a really good job explaining some foolishness that we can address. So
yeah, and I think
we appreciate you.
It's about us partnering with this program, because we all have the same love for this program. And actually, you know, when we first started this program, I was the one who handled everything. So I saw all the ins and outs when it came to the city council grant program. So yeah, it's an important.
Like, you're doing a really good job. So whoever put you in this position, shout out to them too.
Thank you.
Really good job. So skip to the path forward, figure out what we can do. Then I'm gonna go to some of the eager council members. And I know you addressed Councilwoman Swearingen's questions. Feel like we should fix that. And then you was like, oh, well, this is what we done to fix this. So yeah, kudos to you. Really, really good job.
Thank you. Okay, so these are the process improvements that I would suggest for the program. One is proactively assessing risk, excuse me, centralization of information, learning opportunities for recipients, recipient feedback, and recipient highlights. Okay, so assessing risk. Okay, so the benefit of assessing risk is that we'll be more proactive, right? So we will be able to vet out the organizations that don't have the necessary resources to be able to receive the grant funding, but you can also see those organizations say, okay, we do have resources for you so you can get funding next year. You know, so we need to be able to be a little bit proactive with that as well, right? This can be valid for multiple years. So you have big organizations now that are obviously low-risk organizations. And so these organizations could just typically be valid for a few years, like as far as the risk assessment goes. This will show proof of practice and due diligence to our taxpayers and to everyone else. It eliminates the compliance review at year end, and it allows the new grant program period to begin uninterrupted. Okay, so the next one is centralization of information. Okay, so this will give the recipients the center to inquire about grant statuses, download grant management tutorials, access readily available progress report, upload outstanding information, receive all notification and reminders, provide feedback and suggestions, update contact information and staff information, and send a message to the council team if necessary. Now, the one thing about it, as far as updating contact information and staff information, that's the one thing that was missed this year. Some grant recipients did not receive notification of their grant report because they changed staff members, and the person who was the contact of the organization was no longer there, and so the email was still sent to that person.
So, quick question for you. Go back. Yeah. So, I'm muted. For those listening online, quick question. I'm trying to figure out: are we, as it relates to this center, are we talking about a potential software that does
Yes.
this, or are we talking about setting aside funding for a person or two to do this?
Honestly, I think a software would make it easier. It would take the load off of. It'll take the load off of some of your members. It'll take the load off some of our members.
Do we know of a software or a company that could create this or have this in place?
I'm not 100% sure, but I can definitely investigate and see.
Okay, so
But I think that would be efficient for everyone, and then there would be a center for you guys to see what's out there for these grant recipients. You know.
okay, so I guess we stick a pin in it, and I guess not stick a pin in it. So 2 weeks or 2 to 4 weeks, we just report back on what you find about creating a management software for this.
Okay.
And a price tag. Price tags hurt my heart, but a price tag. Go ahead.
But it'll be efficient, so you'll like it. It won't be too bad. Okay, so we should offer learning opportunities that empower grant recipients. And we, like I said, we have a lot of small organizations that typically just don't have the resources, and they don't have the technical knowledge to do all this stuff, you know, and they don't have the resources that they need to better their organization. So I think providing technical training, funds management, and opportunities for outreach would be good resources to have for these organizations. And like I said, for the organizations that you guys deem are high risk at the moment, if they are armed with this information, they might not be high risk next year, and they will be able to get they'll be able to get grant funding. And it's kind of like, you know, the home ownership, first time homeowners, where they allow you to do the course. Yeah, they allow you to do the course so they can know that you're armed with the information you need to get that help. So it's kind of the same thing. Okay, recipient feedback. This one is very important, and this is based off of the conversations that I have had with grant recipients. They have concerns, they have great ideas, they have suggestions, they have all of these things that will benefit them and help them to thrive with the organizations. And I think it's important that we give them an opportunity to speak. So they will have the opportunity to voice their concerns, criticism, advice, and reactions and suggestions. Okay, so this could also be on the centralized site if possible, or it could be an email strictly dedicated to them. So with the email, you would have to have a person that has the information, you know. Okay. Okay, so my last one is recipient highlights. Okay, many organizations do not get the recognition that they deserve. We have, like I said, small organizations again. I think they're underserved in this program, and they need more recognition for all the hard work that they're doing.
Okay, we so absolutely concur. So sounds like grant awards will be a new thing of the future, because I think it's important. I think your point two, you know, just brought it home for me. Maybe some of the other council members is lack of recognition impacts the ability to solicit funds, and that's very true. Folks don't know what you're doing. Folks can't support you. Folks don't know about your organization. Folks can't support you, and we all each have a platform. So that's cool. So thank you for your presentation. I know we have a lot of members itching to get in the queue. I think I interrupted Councilwoman Swearingen Washington, and then I'm gonna go to Merida's perfect list.
Thank you, Chair. When it comes to the expenditures that the different agencies have in their budget presentation, are they allowed to deviate a little bit? Let's say, for instance, if you say you're going to spend $1,500 on speakers or however, and you end up paying $1,900 or however, if there's a small deviation, are they held to the standard that they, you know, that consequence of not being able to apply or however?
Yes, okay. So basically how we review is like if an organization, say, got $10,000 and they say they spend it all on salaries, buying speakers or a van doesn't qualify for that particular expenditure, right? So that's definitely something that could be reworked, and it's not limited to how we review it. That's something that we could work on suggestion, because technically we're looking at it based off of what they submitted to you guys. So however you want it to be interpreted, we can actually restructure it that way, but we're doing it based off of the documentation that we have of the budget presentation.
Especially if it was a deviation and it was something that was meaningful and it wasn't something ridiculous, you know.
And that was the one thing that I was concerned about. You know, some of these organizations did spend out of compliance, but technically, some of these organizations spent within their operating expenses. So it still was something that enabled them to operate as an organization. It wasn't something that was personal or anything like that. So if that is an issue that we can resolve, I'm willing to participate in that. Basically, we're just reviewing it based off what the information that we currently have. So if you have any suggestions of how it's done, now I would say if we do a risk assessment up front, those things would not really be an important issue. They would just have to report how they spent the money.
That would be good. Also, the 30%, is that laid in stone?
It's in the resolution, and that was a question that I did have, and that was one of the things I wanted to address is some of these small organizations, like last year, got $500. I would think the 30% will only make sense for big organizations, and probably the small organizations will get a flat rate of 30%, only because they're under 50,000 and they submit an e-postcard every year.
So what would you suggest?
I would suggest that
For
the
the
small
small
organizations get 15 flat at the very, you know, that would be easier for you guys to just allocate the funds that way. And some organizations
Oh, that they would
don't.
get 15,000 as opposed to a percentage.
They get the full 30 instead of up to 30. Because that's the rules that are set for all the organizations. Like the big organizations, up to 30 is still meaningful for them because they bring in so much money anyway. But these organizations that don't have much anyway, we're not really helping them by giving them $1,000.
Right.
You know, so if we can give them the flat 30%, and the organizations that meet the criteria of not using the 990N, if they don't file a 990N, then it's up to 30. So they still will give you guys the flexibility for the bigger organization on how much you want to fund them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, is that all from you, Councilwoman?
Yes, sir.
I thought you had a motion.
You want me to go ahead and do the
It's up
motion
to you.
now?
It's
I can
your
do it
world.
now.
It's your world.
I'm ready. Let me put my glasses on.
She has the floor.
Okay, I
So
move.
do you wanna-
I do it. I
Okay.
move that the revision of the consequences for failure to submit proper documentation be modified to 1 year as opposed to 3 years.
I second it.
I object because I had a question.
Okay, there's an objection, but there's properly motion and properly second. Do you want to recognize her? I mean, it's properly motion, properly second. I think we will still take a vote. Go ahead. I mean, it's properly motion. There's only one objection. I mean, we still can take a vote on it. But do you want to recognize Councilwoman Walker?
I'd like to take a vote on this first, please.
Okay. Do you want to recognize point of information? All right. So
Point of information.
There we go. Get your point.
Thank you. And I too wear fake lashes. So as it pertains to this, and then I'll pause and come back, but as it relates to this, why was it 3 years?
We did that.
In the first place? What was the reasoning behind the 3 years, and what's the reasoning behind the 1 year versus nothing? Is still, to me, it comes across still as a penalty. Why does it still have to be 1 year? Why do they have to wait at all? I think this Memphis City Council community grant is AKA slush fund. I think that it is very important, and I appreciate your earlier statements surrounding what it does mean to these organizations, because a lot of organizations do live for this program. So once again, so I'll be clear, why was it established as 3 and why is it 1 year versus 0? Why do you have to be penalized for not being approved?
Okay, so it's not, I'm gonna try to speak to what the council decided to do last year, if I can remember correctly. And I can't remember which particular council member it was, but the thinking behind it is we wanted organizations who apply for council grant funds to follow the processes, the way that we put forth. What we were seeing consistently over the, I don't know, I feel like 20 years at this point, but over the 4 years I've been on, for almost 5 years I've been on this body, is people just did not submit the reports in a timely fashion, which create problems not only for our staff, but for the city's staff. So we wanted to say, look, if you don't follow these processes, you won't be able to apply for these particular funds. Because we have, I think we got like 300 applications now. So we just wanted people to follow the process. So I would, object or push back against no penalties being in place, or no, I don't know, I hate to use penalties, but penalties being in place for people not following the process. 3 years is kind of tough, but I do think there's need to be something in place so people can respect the process and the times of our staff, but also the city administration staff, to say, hey, submit these reports so that we'll know that you're complying with the process.
So does the data show that if they're penalized, does this improve the process for those individuals?
I think based on the number of calls we've received from staff, because this has just been in place, I think maybe 1 year, but the number of calls we receive, people are understanding that, hey, if I don't get my reports in on a timely fashion, we won't be eligible to receive funds, because people want us to support the organizations, but the citizens at large want us to have a process in place that we can show, hey, we're doing our best to be accountable with your tax dollars. So 3 years is harsh. 1 year seems more reasonable. So I would be inclined to support this motion, because 3 years is harsh. But what we heard from our staff is it's a lot. People just not doing what we asked them to do.
Okay, thank you for that information, and I yield the floor.
Okay. So Councilwoman Swearingen Washington, you had a motion in a second. Point of information, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Easter Thomas.
Thank you. So before we support this, so is this saying, because we got an email the other day. Hey, now, that was funny. We got an email the other day saying that they can go ahead and apply. So is this saying moving it to 1 year effective for the ones that were on the list that we got, or just moving forward?
Moving forward.
Okay.
FY25.
But we're in FY25.
But the next grant cycle.
FY26.
26. The next grant cycle.
So which one is it?
Well, make it a motion. I think it's the next grant cycle.
That's where my point of information coming from. Because if we say FY25, that's pertaining to the ones that we're trying to help right now.
Oh, okay.
FY26 is next year.
Great point of information, Councilwoman Thomas. So I'm trying to get the intent, because I think the intent is going to decide how I vote. Are you trying to allow new people to apply in a grant process that's already closed? Or are you talking about going forward the next one? So it'll be the next one. So it'll be FY26. Got it.
So can you do that friendly?
So FY26, because I was going to have some heart attacks.
Yes, I'll support for FY26.
Okay, all right. So I'm in line with Councilwoman.
And then we can talk about, I want to be in the queue to talk about.
Okay, so, all right. So there's a friendly amendment to Councilwoman Swearingen Washington's motion. So we're moving, the motion is to change the penalty from non-compliance from 3 years down to 1 year beginning FY26.
Yes.
There's a motion, there's a second.
Point of information.
Okay. I'm gonna have a heart attack and keep giving all these point of information. I'm literally not gonna acknowledge anyone else. Go, Dr. Warren.
I'm thinking that, if we do that, I'm concerned that what that means is if anyone is disallowed this year, they got a 3-year penalty.
No, okay. No. Good point.
Okay, so that's just a point of information.
Good point of information. So what Councilwoman Swearingen Washington's resolution is going to do to the grant program, going forward, if there's non-compliance, there will only be a 1-year penalty as opposed to the 3-year penalty. But the 3-year, we're removing the 3-year penalty and making it 1. Good point. All right, so doesn't appear to be any objections. I'm going to say, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it's the opinion of the chair that the ayes have it. I hope we have that change noted on Councilwoman Swears Washington's resolution going forward for the FY26 period. So I'm assuming someone's taking notes. Councilwoman Logan's in the queue, and then Dr. Warren.
Okay, I wanted to make sure a couple of things that I'm clear on the technology that we are going to use moving forward, that it'll be comprehensive and interactive sites so that recipients can upload data, review accounts, communicate with staff, and do all they need to do on that site. Not a lot of emails, but we find something, whether it's a box software or we have some created for this program so that it can be interactive and comprehensive. Number two, you had mentioned, so you focused on risk assessment, and I'm not sure if everybody was tuned into that or understand what you're saying by risk assessment. So if you could, I want to make sure that I'm understanding. Let me just use myself. This is an opportunity for us to look at these grantees on the front end to see their capacity and whether or not they are doing what they're supposed to do and have the capacity to carry out this grant that we give them on the front end. That way we don't have a lot of this compliance on the back end. Is that what, and who would take them through the risk assessment, and how does that fold into the program?
I would look at the risk assessment as something that would be submitted with their application documentation. And I would think that those things would need to be looked at first. So you already have someone reviewing applications, right? Paper stacked all the way up here, applications. But if some of those are organizations that are high risk, that will reduce that power. It'll basically reduce the need to look at those applications. You automatically say, okay. It could be something as simple as a rubric that you follow. How long has this organization been in partnership with the city council grants program? How much funding have they had in the last fiscal years? You know, those just basic questions to let you know, okay, these organizations have actually been working. What type of programmatic proof do you have of these organizations? Okay. You know, it could basically be generalized questions, but they're questions that let you know that these organizations have actually been working. These organizations actually have the funding. They have more than just the amount that you're giving them. Some organizations are working just off of that funding that city council gave them.
So you'll come up with that criteria or the rubric and all that, and we'll look at that, and you all will integrate that into the program initially before they get into a lot of filling out papers and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, so I will send it to you guys, and y'all can figure out what you think might need to be added or taken off, and we can go from there.
Okay, perfect. The next thing is, you mentioned that it takes 45 days for some part of the process. So if you look at from the time that they get approved to the time that they get a check, what's the average wait time?
It depends. It depends on how quick.
What's the longest?
Oh, are you talking about from the actual date that you submit, that you do the allocation, or just in general?
That they were told that I'm talking about when we let them know that they have been awarded, and then when they get the check.
Okay, so it really depends. Sometimes we have organizations that are not responsive when it comes to submitting the documentation that we're requesting, and
it's kind of based on that. It's based on
so many factors, man. It's based on how long does it take for them to submit the documentation that we need. How long does it take them to submit the certificate of liability if it's outdated? How long does it take for them to sign the contract and send it back over to us? And then once we receive that documentation, that's when we'll send it over to get reviewed. And that also depends on the influx of information that purchasing is receiving, how many contracts.
So it goes into that cycle.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
If they meet, you have deadlines for that, and they meet all the deadlines, and everything is equal. What are we talking about in terms of
We
time?
usually say up to 45 days. 45 days usually being the worst case scenario for us, but it just kind of gives you a cushion in case there is some level of delay. So for the most part, we will hope that it's under 30 days, but it really does depend on volume. Say we have 50 grant recipients that submitted everything timely. It still has to go through all these people, and it depends on their workload, their capacity, how many contracts they're already reviewing. It really does depend on that. But for the most part, we only, we mainly expected everything to be fully executed within 45 days.
Okay, all right. Again, I'm looking forward to the updates and upgrades to this program, and this conversation has been really enlightening, and hopefully we have the recipients listening and understand that we hear them, and we are actively working on solutions to improve this process and get those dollars to them so they can continue to work. So thank you for your insight and vision on how we can move forward, and for the conversation talking through this. It was greatly appreciated.
Okay,
Thank you. Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And I think you said something great. For members that have agencies that have reached out to them, that have had some issues, if we could time mark when we started this committee, I think have your staff members maybe reach out to them and let them know with the link, and maybe watch a few minutes of this may be very helpful for them, just to say, hey, you know, you can hear from the horse's mouth, and this is where you can find it. This information may be very beneficial. Very good point. Councilwoman Swearingen Washington, then Dr. Warren, Easter Thomas, is she sliding in? Yeah, and then Councilwoman Walker.
Yes, I know we stated earlier, some of the organizations are very small, and some of the disbursements are very small. And we know we don't want to fund the entire organization, but if we could have a consideration of maybe changing it from 30% to 40%. What do you think about that?
Yeah, but it'll still be up to 40%, right? So they'll still, I would say use.
What wording would be beneficial for those small?
Up to 40% could still give them $500. You know what I mean? So I would have a minimum that you could give to each organization.
Okay, what would you suggest?
I would suggest a minimum of $10,000.
$10,000.
Now, and this is the reason, this is why it's important for the risk assessment, right? For you to know how much funding they bring in. You need to know if the amount that you're giving them is funding their complete organization. You know, those are the type of things we need to know and help you make a balanced decision on how much you need to fund them, or are they capable of getting funded a certain amount.
So keeping the up to 30%, but having a minimum of $10,000 for the small organizations.
Yes, but you know, now that I'm thinking about some organizations.
Let's do it this way. Maybe the best thing for us to do is split these programs up into the council grant program, and then fund what used to be under OBDC was the micro loan program. And I'm using the term micro loan, but basically it's a micro grant program. Might be maybe more painful, don't know, but OBDC was set up for a very similar setup. Yeah. So that may be a way to kill two birds with one stone. I don't know. We can talk about that. Right? I mean, that's the point. Because I do, after talking to several members, you can hop on the mic, we can chat.
Chair, also what she mentioned about, we had talked about support for those organizations that come through and don't have the capacity, helping to build their bandwidth. They may be, instead of putting it in this program, we may refer them to OBD, Office of Business Diversity and Compliance, to get that training and extensive support as opposed to trying to build it into this program.
Chairman, Walter Person.
Hey, Walter.
Hey, interim CFO.
Not for
125.
long.
Hopefully. 125 North Main. You are correct. We did have a micro lending program in OBDC. We've kind of sunsetted that program right now. Yeah. Right, but I think that there's an opportunity to explore something similar to that. And actually, that is one of Mayor Young's initiatives. So,
and the way that it would work too, because they're nonprofits for federal tax purposes, it's not really a loan, because what it is we'd likely set up as a forgivable loan, and so they don't actually have a benefit that's taxable. So it may solve a couple issues that you're dealing with. The other thing, and I know there's a resolution coming, I hadn't had a chance to review it. I'm just going to get it. Well, let me let you finish and I'll get back to it. Sorry.
That was it. That was it. Thank you.
All right. I've got Dr. Warren, Easter Thomas, Walker.
I just wanted to say thank you for that presentation. What you do is very complex. Okay, as we're sitting here listening to it, there's a whole bunch of moving parts. It's really hard to put this thing together. And I can see, as we look at the number of people who didn't qualify once we put this through, how hard it is for them to be able to figure out how to follow it. And I have a resolution to try to give people 15 more days to get this in that I'd like to bring forward, just to give you time to be able to work with those people. I'm concerned a little bit about the not giving the smaller grants to some people because some people's budgets are $5,000 or $10,000. And if, if we have a number is give them 500, 4 or 5 of us give them $500, that's a pretty significant amount. What I'm hearing from you is that's really hard for you to do because it makes the numbers go up and the numbers are an issue for you to be able to process. Is that right?
Oh no, I've talked to so many small organizations, and it's so much they can do for the city if they just had the funding. And $500 doesn't really scratch the surface when it comes to some of these organizations. And we're looking at it on a broad stroke type of brush basis where everybody gets the same allocation or 30%, but it's not helpful to these small organizations who technically 30% will not help them at all anyway.
I see, but I guess I'm looking at the number of organizations that are there. If we didn't give them anything, because let's say we give everyone 10,000, that means we've got 20 people that used to get $50 or $500, and now we got one person that gets 10,000 and 19 that get nothing.
I don't